Alright, you guys, so today we're going to be talking about Fraction Busters Part 2, so go ahead and make sure that you title your paper Fraction Busters Part 1. Sorry, not Part 2. We're talking about part 1. So go ahead and make sure that your full name is on the notes, and then when should I use a fraction buster? So you must have an equal sign. You also must have two or more fractions. So your equation, because now that we have an equal sign, we have an equation, must have two or more, that says two or more fractions. Okay, and then how do I bust a fraction out of an equation? You are going to find the LCM first. So let's say find LCM, and remember that is the lowest common multiple. Okay, and then we have, and you're finding the LCM of always the denominator, and then you're going to, that's basically just finding the smallest number that all of the denominators divide into. And we want to make sure that they are dividing into them evenly and not getting decimals from them. Once you guys find the LCM, you're then going to multiply every term, every single term, by that LCM. And again, that's the least common multiple, and then that means that you are busting out your fractions. Okay, so that's just some of our language for this. So now we're going to go over about 3 examples for you guys to show you what that actually means. So for our first example, we're going to go ahead and make our fraction of 1 over 3, and the x is going to be right here, and then we're going to add 1/4 to it, and then equal 5/6. So if you guys remember that you have your denominators here, so 3, 4, and 6, so we're trying to figure out what number goes into all those, then they can be divided nicely. So if we have a 6, you guys want to start off with your highest number. So if you have a 6, does 4 go into 6? Nope. So we have to stop right there. A 3 does go into 6, but we have to use one that all of it goes into. So you're going to start with your highest number and say, okay, now 6 plus 6 is now 12. Does 3 go into 12? Yep. Does 4 go into 12? Yes. So 3 goes into 12 4 times, and then 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 6 goes into 12 twice. So yay, we have a number that we get to now multiply. So our LCM is equal to 12. So now my next step, I'm now going to multiply every term by my LCM. So if I'm going to go multiply here, multiply by 12, multiply by 12, multiply by 12. Okay, so now we want to make sure that these actually go through and they divide out. So how many times, now we're going to bust out the fractions. So how many times does 3 go into 12? 3 divided by 12, or 12 divided by 3 is 4. And we get to cross that out because 3 divided by 3 was 1. 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. Remember, when you guys are actually simplifying fractions, what you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom as well. So we're trying to get all of our denominators to equal 1. That's how you pick the right LCM. Now, how many times does 6 go into 12? Twice, and then 6 goes into 6 one time. So great, we have all of our denominators as 1, and then we get to now just multiply our numerators. So this 4 times 1, we get 4 times 1, which is 4, and then divided by 1 is just going to be 4 anyway, so we get to just bring our x with it. Then we have 3 times 1, we're going to add that 3, just bring down your plus sign, and then divided by 1 would still be 3. And then I'm actually going to show you guys this, because this is what your fractions would all look like. You have your equal sign, 2 times 5 is now 10, and then you still have your 1 on the bottom. However, it's a lot easier when anything divided by 1 is still going to be itself. So we're just going to have our 4x plus 3 equals 10. And now we're right back to solving our values like we normally do in an actual equation. So what we're going to do first is we're going to subtract 3 because you want to get rid of anything that's not touching the x first, addition, subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 3 first. 4x equals 10 minus 3 is 7. And then I'm going to divide both sides because this is 4 times x. So dividing gets rid of multiplication. And I get x equals 7/4. And we're just going to leave it as the fraction. Okay, so by doing this LCM, it makes it a lot more simple to actually work with a regular equation here. All right, let's go ahead and go on to our next example. And example number 2 is going to have a -1/2, and we have minus 2/5 x equals 3/10. So now again, I'm going to be finding my lowest common multiple, which we have, start with your highest number and see if it goes into it. Well, 10 goes into 10, yes. Does 5 go into 10? Yes. 2 goes into 10, yes. Perfect. My LCM is 10. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply everything by 10 here. And then we're going to start dividing and simplifying. So how many times does 2 go into 10? 5 times. 2 goes into 2 once. 5 goes into 10 twice. 5 goes into 5 once. 10 goes into 10 once, and 10 goes into 10 once. So again, we have ones in all of our denominators, so I'm just going to multiply the numerators here, the top values. So 5 times a -1, we have a -5. 2 times a -2, we have a -4. But be careful, this one had an x, so make sure you bring that down, and we have an x there. Now we have 3 times 1, which equals 3. Awesome. Look to see if we can combine like any terms. These are just numbers. It doesn't have an x, so I can't combine it with this one, which means I'm now going to start solving for x. Remember, you are dealing with addition, subtraction first. That's not attached to the x, so I'm going to deal with this -5 first. The opposite of subtraction is addition, or opposite of a negative is a positive. And so these cancel out, and I'm left with a -4x equals 8. Now I have multiplication to deal with. So I have to divide both sides by a -4. And in order to get that, -4 divided by -4 is just 1. So 1 times x is x. And then 8, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So that one came out nice for us. All right, you guys. And then our last example that we are going to go over is example number 3. And we are going to do 2x over 3 minus 3x over 4. And that equals 2. All right, so all of a sudden we see here that we have a missing denominator. We're going to put this fraction over 1 so that we can now have a fraction and see which our LCM is going to be. So we start with the highest number. Does 3 go into 4? No. Okay, let's add another one. 4 plus 4 is 8. Does 3 go into 8? No. Okay, so we have to go higher. 8 plus 4 is 12. Does 3 go into 12? Yes, and 1 also goes into 12. So perfect. Our LCM is 12 here. We're now going to multiply the numerators by 12, all of them. And now we're going to simplify our fractions. So 3 goes into 12 4 times. 3 goes into 3 once. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 1 goes into 12 12, and we already have a 1 on our denominator. You guys, it's very key that you keep this organized work, or else it's going to make it very confusing for you. So now we're going to multiply everything. 4 times 2x is going to be an 8x. We have a 1 on the bottom, so we leave it. Bring down that negative symbol, and 3 times 3x is 9x. And equals 2 times 2, or 12 times 2 is 24. So now we actually do have like terms here, but they both have x's. So I have 8 positive x's and I have 9 negative x's. So I actually have the, okay, so we are able to subtract these. So I have more negative than I have positive, so I'm left with a -1x. You don't have to have that 1 right there, it's okay. but I just wrote it there so you guys can see that it's the invisible 1 that's in math. Then we have multiplication here. The x is being multiplied by a negative 1. So in order to get rid of multiplication, I'm going to divide by a negative 1. And I get x equals just a positive times divided by a negative is a negative, and 24 divided by 1 is 24. All right, you guys, so there's all the different examples. We will go over some in our next class, but please make sure you're going slow, keeping organized, and writing down all the steps, and showing your work how I do. All right, you guys, have a good day. I'll see you in class. Thanks.